Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and those otherwise inclined, my name is TheWongerLady2, and welcome to another edition of What About This? This is a series where I look to rewrite, restructure, or fantasy book what I think could come next in various arcs and events across shows, stories, games, etc. Yes, it has been a while. Sorry about that. But it makes its return because it is the most rumbleful time of the year, as the Royal Rumble comes round yet again. Quite possibly the most anticipated event on the WWE calendar, yes, even more so than WrestleMania, although not at all controversially held in Saudi Arabia this year. This video I will be focusing on fantasy booking the Women's Royal Rumble, which seems like it could be very interesting this year. Not necessarily because there are a lot that could feasibly win, not that there aren't, but more so for the state of the division at the moment. The clear favourite to win in my regard would be Bianca Belair, but she's been out with a broken knuckle for months and there's no clear recovery time for that sort of injury. It heals when it heals. Otherwise, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez are probably your next front runners. Beyond that, outside of Becky Lynch and AJ Lee, who will almost certainly be feuding over the IC title, come Mania, every other major contender is not just in the tag scene, but actively seeking the tag titles. Asuka, Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, Bayley, Nia Jax, Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, hell, even Liv, who I mentioned before, is, alongside Roxanne Perez, currently the #1 contender for the women's tag titles. The only woman with any momentum in the main event scene that isn't currently a world champion is Raquel Rodriguez, and Nikki Bella to a lesser extent. That's what makes this so weirdly interesting, as the field is pretty wide open but murky. With that said, how could this all go down? Well, let's see what we can do. Entrant number 1 is one half of the women's tag champions, Io Sky. Yes, the Genius of the Sky opens the Rumble for the second year in a row. She comes down ready, all smiles, posing with her championship, when the smile is wiped from her face at the thrumming techno pulse. Entrant number 2 is Asuka. The two former stablemates in two separate companies circle each other, Asuka giving Io some lip before they lock up. The Empress goes for her spinning back fist, but Io ducks, tries to drop kick which Asuka sidesteps before Io then ducks an Empress kick. Both mostly evade each other's offense. Out at number 3 is Ivy Nile, the only member of American Made that's done much of anything since Gable's injury, and even then that's not saying much, slides into the ring and adds her technical ability to the mesh of styles in the ring, getting in some of her own offense. At number 4, getting just a slightly more favourable draw than last year is Roxanne Perez. The Judgment Day member slides into the ring and adds to the carnage using her quickness to quickly take control, hitting pop rocks on Io before hitting the Prodigy on Ivy. That doesn't last too long as the first surprise entrant arrives at number 5, Sol Ruka. The NXT starlet gets in and starts running wild, dropping Roxanne and Asuka, using the Empress as a surfboard as she does, before Io cuts her off. Io puts her down before jumping up to the top turnbuckle and goes for her over the moonsault, but crashes and burns as Sol rolls out of the way. As Sky gingerly gets to her feet, Sol catches her in the Sol Snatcher. Ivy tries to take advantage by jumping Sol from behind, throwing her against the ropes, but Sol is able to reverse her, regain control and lift Ivy over and out. Ivy Nile is the first elimination of the night. Coming out at number 6 is Julia. The Women's United States Champion gets into the ring, quickly hitting Sol with the Arrivederci knee and planting Roxanne with the Northern Lights bomb, before turning around into Io and Asuka, with the 3 Japanese women trading blows. Entering next at number 7 is last year's winner, Charlotte Flair, who after taking a bit of time on her entrance starts to lay out everyone. A big boot to Sol, spears to Asuka and Julia, and Roxanne eats a fall-away slam, before Flair kips up. She runs in at Io in the corner, who springs over her, throws a kick that Charlotte catches, before sweeping her down and applying the figure 4 onto her, weakening the tag champ. though that ends as Asuka slides in with a shining wizard to the Queen. Chelsea Green marches out at number 8 but doesn't immediately get into the ring. Instead, she runs around to where Julia's US title has been moved, grabbing it before bringing it into the ring. She tries to strike the woman who she traded the belt back and forth with, but Julia avoids it and grapples Chelsea. Green shrieks and wriggles free before scampering under the rope, the title having been lost in the scuffle. Julia picks it up and taunts Chelsea, only to be blindsided from behind by Asuka, with Green slithering back under the ropes to join Asuka in beating down the beautiful Madness. Out at number 9 is Zelina Vega. It'll be interesting to see if she's got any cosplay ring gear that adheres to the dress code, or with her allegiance with her husband. She goes after Perez first, hitting her with a code red in lieu of Perez's use of pop rocks, before joining in on the US mid-card beatdown, first turning to the woman she dethroned in green and dizzying her with her Hurricane Ranas, before aiming at the woman who dethroned her in Julia, briefly gaining the upper hand before Julia takes it back. Asuka gets some help as Kairi Sane comes out at number 10, and the Kabuki Warriors work in tandem to start laying out as many people as they can, with Asuka directing traffic as Ivy frantically falls in line. As they do this, Julia continues her brawl with Zelina, hoisting up Vega over the top ropes, but Vega holds on with her legs and drags Julia over the top rope with her, both women hanging onto the ropes, not eliminated. They strike at each other on the ring apron. Zelina catches Julia with a big kick, but before she can capitalise, Asuka dashes across the ring and hits Vega with a hip attack through the ropes, knocking her to the ground and eliminating her. She then goes to knock off Julia, who counterattacks. Io quickly takes the place of Asuka, who is briefly turned back by Julia, but then Asuka and Io work in tandem to eliminate Julia. There's a beat as both women realise what's just happened, while behind them Kairi is beaming and bouncing, thinking that maybe they can get the band back together. Her smile is wiped from her face though as Asuka turns and attacks Io again, before screaming for Kairi to join in the beatdown. Kairi reluctantly does so. Io doesn't have to wait long for reinforcements though, as Rhea Bloody Ripley is the next entrant, who runs down the aisle before barreling through the Kabuki Warriors. She muscles the former tag champions off of her tag team partner before helping Io to her feet, before Team Rio continue to pick off the women they took the tag straps from. They manage to get Asuka beaten down in the corner, but Kairi dives in between them all, using her body to shield her senpai as she raises her arms up. Io looks a little conflicted and tries to convince Kairi, who is animatedly pleading and bracing. Rhea just sneers and points down at the former Mae Young Classic winner, though that smirk on her face disappears as Kairi slaps her in the face. In a fit of rage, Rhea manhandles Kairi away and over to the ropes as Kairi flails violently in her grip. She valiantly clings to the rope, crying out for Asuka, but before her mentor can recover, Io runs in and helps Ripley eliminate Kairi, to be followed by Asuka screaming at Kairi! As Rio runs back to Asuka, the veteran is able to fend them off. Entrant number 12 is our next surprise entrant, NXT's Blake Monroe. She saunters down to the ring, scoffing at several of the competitors before getting in and hitting anyone that moves. She then comes face to face with Sol Ruka, and they come to blows. Sol manages to knock her down and goes for a Soul Snatcher, but Blake disrupts her on the ropes, pushing her forward so her head smacks against the ring post, before hooking her in and hitting a Mayday. Monroe looks to capitalise on the move when she is instead wrenched back by her hair. She turns in disgust to find the perpetrator, Chelsea Green. The two get to fighting, with Chelsea pushing Monroe up against the ropes as she tries to eliminate her. Alba Fire comes out next and sprints to the ring as Chelsea yells at her. Alba slides into the ring as Chelsea ducks down to get better leverage under Monroe's leg. However, Monroe wriggles free right as Chelsea starts to lift back up, and as Alba runs in, instead of lifting Blake, Chelsea instead lifts up the full head of steam Alba, sending her up over the ropes and eliminating her, quite possibly breaking Green's record for the shortest time in the Women's Rumble in the process. Chelsea despairs, voicing her deep concerns about her history being taken away from her, all while Blake just laughs behind her. Entrant number 14 is the main roster return of Natalya, but not as Natalya, as Natty Neidhart, and she goes on a tear, ripping her way through everyone in the ring. Roxanne Perez tries to stand up to her, catching her out with a kick to the gut before attempting to hook in the Prodigy. But Natty instead fires off a suplex before leaning her against the ropes and sending her over and out with a discus lariat. Entrant number 15 sees back-to-back returns as Tiffany Stratton makes her return since losing her WWE Women's Championship. She comes in flipping her way around and through everyone she can, before hitting the prettiest moonsault ever, probably on Sol, with Io matching it with her own moonsault immediately afterwards. As Stratton gets to her feet, she has a bit of a stare down with Blake Monroe, before Chelsea interjects herself into the moment as well. Green and Monroe both manage to bring down Tiffany, but they continue to fight amongst themselves. As Blake and Chelsea tussle once more, Zarya comes in at number 16. She storms the ring, her sights locked only on Monroe. Getting into the ring, she lines her up for a spear, but Blake gets out of the way at the last second, with Zarya instead brutalising Green, who painfully rolls out of the ring under the bottom rope. Blake tries to stomp on her from behind, but she wears it, the Adelaide powerhouse snatching her up for a German, before then catching Io, who tries to crossbody her, hoisting her up onto her shoulders and hitting the F6, before going over to Sol Ruka as Zal Ruka team up. Lash Legend comes out at number 17 and immediately starts powering her way through anyone who steps up to her. Kicks, slams, throws, the whole arsenal. Zarya matches her in a test of power, but just as she looks like she could be overpowering Lash, Monroe blindsides her from the side. Blake sneers and points down at her to Lash, who smiles, before planting Blake with a legendary bomb. She tosses limp Monroe out of the ring, eliminating her, before Tiffany jumps onto her back, trying to put in a sleeper. After a bit of a struggle, Lash manages to wrangle her off and over the top rope, but only to the apron. Stratton smacks her back, but is then caught by a big boot over the top rope from Charlotte, eliminating her. Flair doing a little taunt in lieu of their WrestleMania match last year. Alexa Bliss arrives at number 18, and she and Charlotte begin to team up, landing some tag team offense on Natty and Lash, before turning to square up with Zaruka. The two teams have at it, and Bliss and Flair gain the upper hand. Alexa cinches Sol in ready for the Sister Abigail DDT. Zarya lines her up for a spear but is intercepted by a spear from Charlotte instead, allowing Bliss to spike Sol. Charlotte tosses out Zarya, Bliss tosses out Ruka. Entrant number 19 is Liv Morgan. She makes like she'll enter the ring but pulls away as Rhea makes a swipe at her, the Judgment Day member keeping her space while Rhea just grins like a predator who's found her prey. That is until Asuka blindsides her from behind and starts pounding on her, with Liv sliding in to join in on the beatdown. Io jumps in to make the saves and the tag team champs start to fight back. Liv manages to break free of a wearying Io, while Rhea gets Asuka up against the ropes. The Empress knocks her back with a kick, but Liv rushes in with an attempted Oblivion. Asuka blocks it, flings her back and chases after her for an Empress kick. Liv ducks and then scampers under the bottom ropes as Rhea attempts to catch her while Asuka collapses following the miss. As she gathers herself, she pauses and slowly looks around her. Rhea has turned back to face the Empress, as has Io, Charlotte and Alexa, all on a separate side of the ring. Asuka, like Io, weary from opening the Rumble, nevertheless starts trash talking to all four in Japanese, with Io the only one to really change expression at all, before she taunts at all of them to bring it. Of course they oblige, the four beating her down despite getting in an early strike or two. However, in the process they start to hit one another, letting Asuka get a bit of breathing room. She jumps up on Charlotte's back trying to lock in the Asuka lock, but Charlotte flings her off and whips her into the ropes. Flair chases, looking to big boot her over the top ropes, but Asuka's head rears back. Flair dives out of the way as Asuka spits out the mist, before Io and Rhea double clothesline her out, eliminating her. They wave down at her while she chews them out. Number 20 is Jordan Grace, and SmackDown's newest woman wastes no time in getting to work, slamming, flexing and throwing everyone in arm's reach. Lash steps up to try and knock her down, but Big Mama Pump overpowers her and lets her place driver in. Lila Valkyria quickly follows at number 21, immediately flying in with a Nightwing from the downed Lash before she locks up with Natalya, the inaugural Women's Intercontinental Champion, against the veteran several people thought should have been People. The two show off a bit more technical grappling before they are both knocked down by a recovered Lash legend. All the while, the teams of Rio and Flair and Bliss have been focused on each other, while Liv has been trying to scurry away from Grace. Entrant number 22 is Candice LeRae, and she focuses more on vicious sneak attacks, attacking people while their backs are turned. And whenever she breaks their rhythm, she beckons Lash over to continue the beatdown. Lash just sort of shrugs and goes along with it. After all, if LeRae is going to give her all of these openings on the others, who is she to turn that down? The two are beating down Lyra when Bayley comes out at number 23, running with full force to help out her friend. She plants Candice with a belly-to-belly suplex before she and Lyra, with their powers combined, bring down Lash Legend. The two then turn their attentions to the Women's Tag Team Champions, Lyra focusing in on weakening Rhea with the aid of Flair and Bliss, while the former Damage Control members of Io and Bayley square off, with Bayley ultimately coming out on top after spiking Sky with a rose plant. Mood shifts as Nia Jax is revealed at entrant number 24, getting into the ring and bulldozing over everyone in her path. Bliss, Natty, Io, Lyra, Liv, the whole shebang. After flattening everyone in her path, Candice comes up, all smiles, looking to reconnect with Nia, who smiles back at her before flattening her as well, and tossing her out, eliminating her former lackey. Jax then gets a clubbing forearm from behind by Jordan, who then manages to hoist her up onto her shoulders. I do believe she's strong enough to do that. But before she can do anything else, Lash comes in to save her tag team partner before hoisting Grace up for the Legend Bomb, but delivering it over the top rope, slamming her down onto the ring apron and rolling off, eliminating her. Lyra and Bayley figure out that they need to deal with this quickly and team up, but despite their efforts they are overpowered and brought down to the mat. Lyra turns to Bayley, visibly torn, before slapping Bayley across her face. Bayley goes a little stunned before snapping into her wide-eyed crazy side, and rapidly charging at the two with Lyra following. While her wild fury does catch them out initially, Nia ends up slapping Bayley, which breaks her out of her spell. Bayley seems a little dazed and confused until Lyra slaps her again. She goes manic, but is slapped again by Nia. Lyra slaps her once more, and the incensed Bayley grabs her and hurls her over the top rope. She then rolls around and charges at the two powerful women, managing to scoop Lash up for a Bayley to belly, but Nia stops it before the two hoist her up in a joint military press before throwing her out of the ring onto Lyra. As Lyra despairs, Bayley reverts into her hugger persona and just gives her a big hug. Who can stop this terrible twosome? Well, that answer comes swiftly as Bianca Belair makes her return at number 25. She immediately cracks Legend with her hair braid, disabling her for a moment, before powering through Nia, scooping her up and eliminating her a la Cesaro with Big Show at WrestleMania 30. She then turns to Lash, who tries to get revenge but is unable to as Belair plants her with a KOD in the middle of the ring. Rising to her feet, she turns into Rhea and Io, the stare down reminiscent of their triple threat the year prior. As they battle with one another, Bianca's freshness levelling out with the weary tag duo. Maxine enters at number 26 and she teams up with Natty, the mentor and the student, to gain the upper hand, primarily focusing their offense on Liv. Rio and Bianca are continuing their tussle, leaving Flair and Bliss to tangle with Lash Legend. Despite the recent NXT call-up's mighty strength, the two veterans' combined experience and wit allows them to overcome her. She gets sent over the ropes onto the ring apron, but drags Alexa over after her. But while she's focused on Alexa, Flair eliminates her with a big boot over the top rope, while Bliss scampers back through the ropes. Liv finally gets some help as Raquel Rodriguez runs out at number 27, with a fresh addition, turning the tables on Natty and Dupree. Liv bringing down Maxine, while Raquel plants a flagging Natty with a Tahana bomb in the middle of the ring. Flair and Bliss look to join the conflict of Rio and Belair, focusing more on the tag team champs, while Bianca is then targeted by the Judgment Day members. Io gets rocked by a hard punch from Bliss, leaving her leaning against the ropes. Charlotte runs in looking to eliminate her with another big boot, but Sky ducks out of the way, with Rhea following after Flair to grab her from behind and lever her over and out, eliminating the Queen. A furious Flair glares up at a smoking Rhea, who turns around into a surprise oblivion from Liv, with her and Raquel both hurling Ripley out and eliminating the Aussie. 2 big players eliminated, and we're not in the final stretch yet. Nikki Bella comes out at number 28, looking to pick the bones of Io, knocking her loopy with a heavy punch, before laying her out with a rack attack. Liv and Raquel have moved on to targeting Bianca, leaving Alexa fending for herself against Natty and Maxine. She does manage to stun Natty, knocking her back, before cinching Maxine in for another Sister Abigail DDT, but she's cut off this time as Natty nails her with a discus lariat. With Alexa laid out, the student and mentor lift her up and eliminate her together, probably to some discourse amongst the crowd, and certainly people online. With her gone, they turn and look to scavenge off the rest of the field. Though that doesn't last long, as Becky Lynch enters at number 29, strutting to the ring holding the women's IC title aloft, while pointing at Maxine and berating her. Natty just slaps Maxine on the back and stands off to the side, letting Maxine deal with Becky on her own. Maxine looks to utilise her teachings and does seem to be on top of Becky initially, but the man takes advantage of an opening, rakes the eyes of Dupree, before throwing her over the top rope and eliminating her. She doesn't have time to bask in her glory though, as Natty immediately sets upon her, laying her out with the German before applying the sharpshooter to wear her down. Becky writhes for some time in the submission before managing to reverse it, sweep her down and apply the disarm her. Nikki Bella tries to take advantage of Becky's tunnel vision but eats a Beck-sploder for good measure, before she then plants Natty with a manhandle slam on top of Nikki. Becky is grandstanding and trash talking as the final entrant is counted down, revealing number 30 as AJ Lee. The man's bravado turns to irate fury as Lee skips down to the ring, unaffected by the daggers glared her way. As she gets into the ring, Becky charges at her, but AJ just pulls down the top rope, tipping Becky over and out by her own momentum. Becky is frozen in shock on the ground, while AJ looks down at her in a mockery of concern, before turning to face her old nemesis, Nikki Bella. The longest reigning Divas champion rushes in with a clothesline, which AJ ducks, runs the ropes and mounts a Lou Thez. After taking a few blows, Natty throws AJ off, with Natty and Nikki working together to send AJ over the top rope, though she lands on the ring apron. She knocks Natty back before climbing up the ropes and uses her legs to drag Nikki over with her, leaving both women on the apron. They trade strikes, with AJ getting in the best one to stagger Nikki, but before she can take advantage, her legs are pulled out from under her as she's eliminated by Becky, before the IC champ mounts her for a ground and pound. AJ flips it and the two women keep going at each other as referees and security come down to separate them and drag them away. Becky filled with rage, AJ just smirking at her. So with that flurry done and no more entrants left to come down, there are 6 competitors left in the ring. Io Sky, Natalya, Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Raquel Rodriguez, and Nikki Bella. Natty goes after Io, Raquel and Bianca square up, leaving Nikki to go for Liv. She breaks through, setting her up for the rack attack, but Raquel gets some breathing room from Bianca to save her partner, pulling Liv down before planting Nikki with a Tehana bomb, with the Judgment Day ladies both hurling Nikki out. Meanwhile, Io is able to flip through a German from Natty, landing on her feet before grabbing her and throwing her out, eliminating the Canadian and getting us down to a final 4 of Liv, Io, Raquel and Bianca. Or at least, so it seems. Bianca and Io temporarily team up to take on the Judgment Day duo, with Liv facing Io and Raquel against Bianca. Io is able to get Liv over the top rope onto the ring apron, but gets surprised by Raquel as she once again fends off Belair to help Liv. Raquel lifts Io over the top rope, but Io latches on with her legs and drags her over as well, Liv choosing to help Raquel stay alive instead of trying to eliminate both women. Io is stuck in the middle, throwing strikes where she can but is losing ground. But then Bianca charges in and shoves Raquel, who desperately grabs at Bianca's long braid to stay alive. Io goes to lift up Liv, but ends up eating a code breaker from her, making her roll from the ring apron to the floor and eliminated. While at the same time, Bianca manages to use Raquel hanging from her braid to swing her into the ring post, sending her clattering to the floor, leaving Bianca and Liv alive. Liv tries to get back in under the ropes, but Bianca keeps blocking her. Morgan grabs Bianca and goes for some sort of jawbreaker stun gun combination, but Bianca blocks it, instead powering Liv up and throwing her away from the ring onto Raquel, who is unable to fully catch her. Liv is eliminated, and it is at this moment that Chelsea Green scampers back in from the other side of the ring. She was never eliminated and had been hiding under the ring. With a head of steam, she levers Bianca up over the top ropes and immediately begins celebrating, throwing her hands up before leaping up to the turnbuckle to salute the crowd. As such, she misses that Bianca does not get eliminated, successfully hanging on and skinning the cat back in. Chelsea gleefully jumps back down to find Bianca waiting for her. Green pretends to plead her off before going for a slap, which Belair catches, hoists her up onto her shoulders, hits the KOD, and then throws her out of the ring. Chelsea Green is eliminated, and the winner of the 2026 Women's Royal Rumble is Bianca Belair, with her choosing to challenge Jade Cargill at WrestleMania. Now obviously, like I said before, this is very dependent on her broken knuckle having healed sufficiently. If not, then I'd think Raquel is probably the likely winner, but who knows? It would be much more of a toss-up. For other statistics, if you're interested, Bianca and, surprisingly, Io would be tied for the most eliminations with 4, with Charlotte, Rhea and Lash all getting 3 apiece. Of course, I do have a bunch of shared eliminations in this, so that does skew figures a little bit. But yeah, that's more or less how I could see this year's Women's Rumble going. I'm sure some of this will be immediately outdated by the Raw taking place in Belfast. I'm recording this before that. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to find me elsewhere, there'll be links in the description below, or feel free to check out the rest of the channel. As always, I've been Throngalady2, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Sometime next week, hopefully a few days before the Rumble is this time, fingers crossed, I should have the men's Rumble video uploaded, so look forward to that. Otherwise, I'll see you all next time. Bye guys.